Welcome to the Magic Mindfulness Podcast, where we sprinkle a little bit of magic into your daily life. I'm your host, Rachel Hupp, and I'm so excited to set out on this mindfulness journey with you. As someone who's experienced the transformative power of mindfulness firsthand, I am here to guide you through the wonders of living a more mindful and joyful life. This podcast is your space for embracing mindfulness and cultivating a deeper connection to yourself and the world around you. Together, let's uncover the magic within and sprinkle a little extra sparkle into your day. Join me as we explore practical tips, inspiring stories, and transformative practices to help you thrive in every aspect of your life. Let's dive in and embrace the magic of mindfulness together. Hello, and welcome back to the Magic Mindfulness Podcast. I have a solo episode for you today, and we're going to be talking about trusting the flow of life. Easier said than done, I know. In a world that constantly demands our attention and tries to dictate our every move, the idea of surrendering control can feel counterintuitive, right? But the truth of it is that by learning to let go and trust the process, we can unlock a whole new world of possibilities that we never even knew existed. So, welcome to the podcast where we're going to be exploring the transformative power of releasing control and how it can lead to a life of greater peace, freedom, and fulfillment. I'm your host, Rachel Hupp, and today we're diving deep into the challenge of control and how learning to let go can open the door to a more joyful, more connected, and spiritually aligned way of being. We'll unpack the problem of this need for control, explore why it is so dang hard to solve, and then break down some practical strategies for embracing uncertainty and trusting the natural flow of life. Now, by the end of this episode, you will have a roadmap for reclaiming your power and embracing the surprising benefits of surrendering control. Now, I do want to invite you to stay tuned until the end because I have a very special invitation for you. So, let me ask you this, my friend. Do you ever find yourself micromanaging every aspect of your life, from work projects to household chores? I have been there. Or maybe you're exhausted from this relentless pursuit of perfection, always trying to maintain this sense of control and order. Been there too. Now, the thing is, though, this need to control everything, it can be draining, right? It can leave you feeling like you are carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. And the reality is, for many of us, this struggle with control stems from this deep seated fear of uncertainty or failure. We tend to cling to this illusion of control as a way to create a sense of stability, security, and predictability in our lives. However, the need for control many times tends to backfire because it leads to this constant sense of stress, this constant sense of overwhelm, and it can even strain our relationships. Now, in your daily life, this need for control might manifest in a few different ways. So you might find yourself feeling like you are always stressed out and anxious. Even the smallest deviations from your plans can send your stress levels skyrocketing. Your relationships, like I mentioned, also might suffer because you might have this insistence on maintaining control that can create tension and distance with friends, family, and colleagues. Now, I know that I have experienced this myself in the past, back in college, so a long time ago, but I had several roommates, and at the time, I just couldn't believe that they didn't want to maintain a clean and orderly home. And I felt like I was putting in all this effort and wanting to keep everything tidy and perfect. And if you know me now, you know that I've released a lot of that. But at the time, one of my roommates actually pulled me aside and said, "Hey, Rachel, this just isn't as important to me as it is to you. Okay." It was a really good conversation because it was good for me to take into account other people's perspectives, other people's thoughts. Here I was thinking this was the way to do things because that was the way I thought it needed to be done. It was one of my first apartments on my own. I thought we needed to keep it clean and tidy. And not everybody I lived with felt the same way. So, as you think about these relationships that you're in, thinking about how you can open the doors to communication and let them know what you're feeling. Let them know that you are struggling with this control, this need to control, this need for perfection, and take in their perspective as well. It's a good conversation to have. And the other thing is how this might show up in your day to day life. Maybe you're feeling like you're always burned out because you feel this pressure to try to control every outcome. And it just takes a toll on your physical well being, on your mental well being over time. Navigating this journey of releasing control, of trusting the flow of life can feel daunting. It can feel confusing. The reality is, from a very young age, so many of us are taught the importance of being in control and planning for the future, right? So I know I can relate to that. And I'm guessing you might be able to too. Our society so often glorifies busyness and productivity, making it challenging for us to embrace uncertainty and to surrender to this natural ebb and natural flow of life. There is also this deep seated fear in many of us of the unknown, as letting go of control tends to mean stepping into the unfamiliar. And our nervous system wants to keep us safe, right? Our nervous system wants to maintain the status quo. And so, without a strong role model or guidance, it can be really difficult to know where to begin. Where is it safe to trust the flow of life? And where do you need to continue to exert a little bit more of that control? So, I'm going to invite you for a moment to imagine a life where you no longer feel the weight of the world on your shoulders. Take a moment to think about that, feel into it, because it can be a challenge to imagine that, right? Imagine a life where you don't feel the weight of the world on your shoulders, where every unexpected twist and turn is met with a sense of calm and acceptance. Now, that, my friend, is a possibility that awaits you when you release control and trust in the process. Now, I'm going to share an example with you, a story from my own life. It just happened recently. And I will tell you, I have struggled with this myself, which is, of course, why I'm sharing it with you. I used to struggle to control every aspect of my life. I've released a lot of that. I've gotten much better at trusting the flow of life, but life still happens, right? Life gets lifey. So, a few months ago, right now it is early April as I'm recording this, and January 15th, we had a snowstorm and it came a day earlier than predicted. Imagine that. We can't, the weather's all about statistics, right? So you can't control the weather. The problem with this for me is that I live near the top of a mountain and my driveway is incredibly steep, and it's very dangerous to drive down my driveway when it's snowy or icy. So normally in the wintertime, we keep an eye on the weather. And if it's calling for any kind of snow, we will park our cars at the bottom of the driveway and then just hike up the mountain to our house. So this year, we woke up January 15th and there was snow on the ground and my heart dropped. I was just like, oh no, what are we going to do? Because if I don't get my car down the driveway now, how long am I going to be stuck here without transportation, without a vehicle? And I had a couple of appointments scheduled that morning. And so my thought was, okay, before it gets worse, just give it a try, give it a go. And so before I went down the driveway, I just asked the universe, whatever happens, may it be an honor and service of my highest and greatest good, whatever that may be. Letting go of attachment to the outcome and trusting the universe to guide me, even though, in my heart, I wanted to make it down that driveway safe in one piece. But trying to release control, trying to surrender to something outside of myself, whatever that may be. Anyway, I started down the driveway and had zero control at any point, all the way down, slid, I think it's about 300 feet or so. And ended up crashing into the woods. I could not stop my car. I couldn't control my car. I couldn't steer my car. And luckily, the only thing that happened besides my car broke, it had to go to the shop, but I broke a bone in my thumb. Well, at the base of my thumb, the trapezium, if you're familiar with it. And so, why am I sharing this with you? This doesn't sound like a plug to trust the flow of the universe, does it? Well, it could have been worse, right? It could have been my chest. It could have been my head. It could have been something way worse. It was my thumb. Um, what lesson am I learning from this? I have a feeling it's going to be an ongoing lesson. But one thing that it reminded me of is the preciousness of life, the preciousness of every day. And we tend to think that even though we know better, we tend to have this feeling that we're invincible, that it's not going to happen to me. I've gone down the driveway before when there was a slight spattering of snow on it, probably not as bad as this time, but it worked out okay. And so I thought, oh, it's not that bad. I think I'll be all right. So that is one thing it reminded me of, just how precious every day of this life is. Another thing it reminded me is that maybe I need to slow down a little bit. Maybe I don't need to do so many things. I had to slow down because there were many things I couldn't do. My left hand was immobilized from the bottom knuckle of my fingertips all the way down to three-quarters of the way down my forearm for about 7 weeks. And so there was a lot that I couldn't do. And so just learning to slow down, learning to communicate, learning to ask for help and make my needs known, to trust the orthopedic doctor, to trust the occupational therapist, because I want to have 100% recovery. And right now, I'd say I'm maybe at about 25%, and it's been about 11 weeks. And so learning to put my trust in other people because that is their area of expertise. But also, this is where trust and action come together because I can't trust them to tell me what to do and just go on my merry way. I have to trust them to tell me what to do, and I have to take action and do what they tell me to do so that I have the best chance of recovery that I can. And so that was a really long and winding way of saying that, the snowstorm arrived a day earlier than predicted, something I could not control. I found myself in a situation that I couldn't control. And I ended up wrecking my car, breaking my hand in the process. And so I was forced during this whole situation to kind of confront my need for control head on, to bring that level of self awareness into my day to day. Because as I started on this journey of healing, as I continue on this journey of healing, I understand that I don't have control over the outcome of my recovery. Now, yes, like I said, I can take the steps to listen to the experts, to trust what they tell me and to do what they say, but I have to trust them. I have to surrender to their expertise. I have to surrender to their guidance. And so throughout this entire experience, I have, believe it or not, discovered a sense of freedom that comes from letting go of control. I learned to trust in the natural flow of life, to find peace in the knowledge that everything is going to unfold as it was meant to do. And as my hand healed, as I got my car was in the shop for about 6 weeks. And funny story, the tow truck got stuck trying to get it out the first time. But I'm coming out of the situation more resilient than ever before. And as a yoga teacher, I have had to modify significantly how I lead my practice, how I teach my classes. And I hope that that has been powerful for my students because I always tell them to meet themselves where they're at, to listen to their bodies and to modify as needed, to change the pose to meet their bodies. And so I've been living this every single day. I've been teaching this by example. And so my deep hope is that it gives my students permission to do the same thing, to trust the process, to meet yourself exactly where you are with a sense of acceptance and a sense of loving kindness. And so, there are a lot of things that we truly just can't control. So, what do we do when we struggle to release control? when we don't know how to trust the flow of life? Well, it's hard. It's challenging, right? One powerful strategy that I have found personally that works well for me is to focus on what you can control. So instead of expending your energy on things that are beyond your influence, things you can't control, instead, try to think about how you can redirect your attention to the actions and the choices that actually are within your power. So, in this example of crashing my car and recovering, what is in my power? I have the power to do my home exercise plan every single day. I had the control over listening to the doctor and wearing that cast and wearing the brace and not weight bearing for a certain amount of time. And so the things that I do have control over are asking for help, not easy. Um, Immobilizing my arm, not putting weight on my arm, but listening to the advice of the experts around me. I do have control over that. I don't have a whole lot of control over how long it's going to take my body to heal. I have to trust the natural healing process to work its magic. But I can focus on what I do have control over and then trust the flow of life to support me around those actions. Another effective approach that I personally have found when it comes to this internal struggle of letting go of the sense of control and trusting, just trusting the flow of life, is to embrace uncertainty. It's said that change is the only guarantee. And so rather than fearing the unknown, how can we invite ourselves to see it as an opportunity for personal growth, an opportunity for adventure? How can we trust in the inherent wisdom of life's journey, knowing that every single twist and turn has the potential to lead you exactly where you need to be? So, an example of this in my own life is that I was in a position where I was considering a different role, a different work role. And I had applied for a job that seemed like it was right up my alley. I had all the credentials for it. I would have been a really good fit for it. And the team was amazing. It would have been a really, really good role for me. However, I got some more information and I was like, oh, I've had really stressful jobs before. This sounds like it's going to be really stressful. And I don't know that I want to put myself back into that situation. And so I withdrew my application actually. And don't you know, a couple weeks later, a job that I never even would have considered myself a perfect fit for, a role that I was a perfect fit for with another amazing team. This role came up and it was beyond my dreams. Like I never in a million years would have thought that an opportunity like this would have come around for me. And so trusting not only the flow of life, but learning to trust your intuition, your inner guidance to help you trust the flow of life. Because when we do, when we know in our heart what we want, when we trust our values, the universe has a way of conspiring to bring these things together for us. And that could be a whole episode for another day, my friends. So maybe I'll add that to my list. But I want to invite you to consider, when and where in your life has practicing trusting the flow of life, embracing uncertainty, how has that helped you to move forward in your life, letting go of that control, surrendering, trusting? All right, so we've talked about embracing uncertainty and we've talked about focusing on what you can control. Now, another thing that has helped that is related to both of these is practicing acceptance. Practicing acceptance can help us to trust the flow of life so we don't feel that intense need to try to control everything. And so it's important to recognize the significance of accepting things that are beyond your control. So, like we talked about before, but just slightly differently. So, instead of expending energy trying to change or fix or worry about these external circumstances, encourage yourself to let go, to accept them as they are. And again, I am well aware that this is much easier said than done. But if we go back to my example of breaking a bone in my hand when I wrecked my car back in January, okay, how can I accept this? Well, the reality is my hand looked like a Mickey Mouse hand. Something was clearly wrong. My thumb didn't work, and I was in pain, and the bruising was unbelievable. So I knew something was wrong. What could I control? But more than that, what could I accept? I had to accept that something was wrong. It had already happened. It was out of my control. I couldn't take it back. I couldn't change it. So instead of taking time or energy to try to change what had happened, to try to fix this situation, I had to let go. I had to accept that this was my new reality. This was what I was facing. And I had to, from that point, trust that the universe was going to guide me in the right direction to heal, to get on this path of healing, right? And so that meant taking steps. So there's some sense of control. I had to take the action to take charge of the situation and go see the doctor. But I also had to release control and surrender. All right. So, how about letting go of expectations? This one's hard, right? So, I have this expectation with my hand that I'm going to heal 100%, that I'm going to be able to get back to everything I was able to do before I broke this bone in my hand. The reality is, I don't know if that's true or not. I have to trust the flow of life and see what is going to happen and accept that reality. So, trusting the flow of life rather than holding on to this rigid expectation, I can embrace the idea that life is full of surprises, and you can too. We can let go of these rigid expectations. Life is full of surprises. So we can practice. How do we practice? We can practice being open to whatever unfolds without attaching yourself to specific outcomes. So, by letting go of expectations, we free ourselves from the constraints of predetermined notions and we allow the space for spontaneity and growth. So, let me share a personal story that really drove home the importance of releasing expectations for me. So, several years ago, I had this vision of how this party, this celebration I was planning for someone close to me was going to turn out. It was a big celebration with all of their closest friends. It was a surprise. And so, trying to coordinate the surprise and keep the guest of honor in the dark was challenging. But I had in my mind this very specific idea of how this perfect day, this perfect celebration was going to unfold. But as the celebration approached, things kind of started to unravel. A few of the guests had conflicting plans and couldn't make it at the last minute. The cake that we got had a funny typo on it. And, it all worked out perfectly anyway, but it ended up being much more low key, a much more intimate gathering. And at first, I kind of felt disappointed. I kind of felt frustrated that things weren't going exactly according to plan. But then I had this realization that by clinging so tightly to these rigid expectations, I was actually robbing myself of the chance to be truly present and enjoy the day. So once I let go of that picture perfect vision, I was able to embrace the spontaneity of what actually unfolded. And it ended up being a wonderfully relaxed evening filled with laughter, filled with connection and gratitude. So many people we loved all gathered together. So that experience taught me that when we let go of expectations, when we stay open to life's surprises, we create this space for joy, for fulfillment, for serendipity to emerge. And so it's a powerful lesson that I continue to apply, reminding myself to flow with the waves of life rather than trying to control every outcome. And just like most of our mindfulness practices, this is a practice, right? We come back to it time and time again. All right. So I want to share one more technique or strategy with you that has been super helpful for me to try to get in this habit of noticing when I'm trying to control things. Where can I release control? And where do I have a deeper opportunity to trust in the flow of life? So this is a big one. Perfectionism. How can we release this need to be perfect and instead embrace the beauty of imperfection? Recognize that mistakes and setbacks are not failures, but rather they are opportunities for growth and for learning. So by letting go of this pursuit for perfection, we free ourselves from this constant pressure to measure up to unrealistic standards. So let me give you an example for this one. This has happened to me more than once, but when I teach group coaching programs or master classes, I always put together a slide deck, right? So, like a PowerPoint presentation or something in Canva. And um, I've always loved language. I've always been big on words and grammar and spelling, perfectionism, right? And so this drives me nuts, but I've got to let go of it and just embrace the fact that when I allow myself to be imperfect, I'm also telling other people that it's okay for you to be imperfect too. So, back to my story. I put together these presentations and I put so much heart and time and effort into them. I have so much fun putting these things together, and I read through them forward and backward to make sure that I don't have any typos, grammatical errors, to make sure that every graphic is perfect, every word is precise. I want to deliver at the top of my game. And then it never fails. When I am presenting this slide deck, um, I'll notice a typo on one of the slides in the middle of the presentation. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, how could I have missed that? And when I go to upload the recording, there's this perfectionist inside of me who wants me to go back and fix that slide and re-record the entire that section just to fix that one misspelled word. And I have agonized over this, my friends. I have berated myself for not catching it sooner. I've strongly considered redoing it, even though I knew it would mean staying up half the night. And so we can laugh about this. I can laugh about this because it seems ridiculous. I'm going to stay up half the night to fix a spelling mistake. So sometimes, at least for me, and maybe this resonates for you, we have to step back and ask ourselves, is this really worth it? Is it worth sacrificing my sleep? Is it worth sacrificing my peace of mind? At the end of the day, would that one tiny typo truly make or break the presentation? And so this shows up in my life all the time, my friend. I am a recovering perfectionist, but I have realized that my relentless pursuit of perfectionism is not only causing me unnecessary stress, but also unnecessary anxiety. So, what do we do when we find ourselves in this situation? Well, we can take a deep breath and we can decide to let it go. And the reality is, I don't even know if anybody else noticed that typo, although I do have a tendency to call myself out when I find them. But, I always get good feedback on my presentations. People are always thanking me for sharing the message. The message wasn't diluted because of one typo, right? And so, in the grand scheme of things, that minor imperfection doesn't matter at all. But this experience taught me a valuable lesson. And like I said, it's taught me that more than once. But sometimes good enough really is good enough. Where can we let go of unrealistic expectations? Because by letting go of these unrealistic, unattainable expectations to be perfect, we can free ourselves to focus on what truly matters. For me, it was providing value. And so this is just a powerful reminder that mistakes and imperfections, they're not failures, my friend. They are opportunities for growth. They're opportunities for flexibility. And maybe most importantly, they are opportunities for self compassion. Now, we've covered a lot, right? We talked about letting go of perfectionism. We talked about releasing expectations and practicing acceptance. We talked about embracing uncertainty and focusing on what we can control instead of what we can't control. So, at this point, you might be wondering, how do you know when it's appropriate to release control and when you need to take action? And so It's important, I think, to strike a balance between surrendering to this natural flow of life and actively engaging with the world around you. The more you practice, the more you'll learn to tune into and trust your intuition, your inner wisdom to guide you in discerning when it's time to let go and when it's time to take decisive action. So remember, releasing control, it doesn't mean that we're being passive. It doesn't mean complacency. What it means is that trusting in the process while still actively participating in your own growth and development is totally acceptable way to move through your day-to-day life. So, as we start to wrap up, I just want to thank you so much for being here with me today. And I want to remind you of this incredible journey that you are starting on, because releasing control and trusting the flow of life, it's not always easy. Baby steps, my friend, but it is a journey worth taking one step at a time. By embracing mindfulness practices, by letting go of perfectionism, and by accepting the uncertainties of life, you are opening yourself up to a world of infinite possibilities. So remember, you are not alone on this journey. Lean on the support of loved ones, get guidance from mentors or coaches, and most importantly, learn to tap into and trust your inner wisdom. Each and every step that you take towards releasing control can help guide you closer to this life of greater peace and joy and fulfillment, less stress, less anxiety. So take a deep breath, my friend. Embrace the present moment and just trust in the beautiful journey that lies ahead. You have everything you need within you to navigate life's twists and turns with grace and resilience. Keep moving forward with courage and conviction, knowing that the best is yet to come. So, as we reflect on the power of releasing control, of trusting the flow of life, I invite you to take the next step on your journey to mindfulness with me and join me for the Magic Mindfulness Masterclass on April 18th, 2024, from 6 to 8 p.m. Now, this is offered online. It is Eastern time, and we're going to dive deeper into some of these transformative practices and dive deeper into mindfulness and how the magic of mindfulness can really transform your day to day. And so, for those ready to commit to their well being, I want to invite you to consider joining the Zen Space, my brand new yoga and mindfulness community, as a founding member in April, where you'll receive complimentary access to the masterclass as part of your membership. So, let's start on this journey together towards a life filled with peace and joy and fulfillment. Now, again, that master class is on April 18th, Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. There is a replay available. The master class on its own, if you just want to drop in for that, is $22. Or you can join the Zen Space, my brand new yoga and mindfulness community, for only $22 a month, which you can cancel anytime. And that is an opportunity for founding members in April. And as a founding member, not only will you get free access to my Magic Mindfulness Masterclass, but you're also going to get complimentary access to my Flourish and Flow 30-day yoga journey, which is 4 weeks of yoga practices building up from 3 15-minute practices in week 1 to 3 30-minute practices in week 4. So that is normally valued at $44, but you can get it free when you join us in the Zen Space. So you can learn more about any of these offerings that you may feel a tug on your heart for at my website, www.rachelhupp.com. And so, before we part ways, I do want to leave you with one final thought. And that is that the freedom and the fulfillment that comes from embracing the power of surrender is so worth it to put in the practice to release and let go. Now, throughout this episode, we have explored how our need for control it's just a heavy burden. It leads to oftentimes unnecessary stress and overwhelm and even disconnection from those we love the most. But when we can learn to let go, when we can trust the process, and when we can surrender to the natural flow of life, we unlock this brand new world of possibility. Surrendering control, it's not about giving up. It's not about being passive. It's about transcending the limits of our own ego and opening ourselves up to the wisdom and the support of the universe around us. It's about recognizing that our true power, it's not in grasping tightly, but in the courage to release and trust and let go. And when we embrace this mindset of surrender, we are in this unique position because we can free ourselves from the constant pressure to micromanage and perform. We free ourselves from these unrealistic expectations that we have become so conditioned to place on ourselves and those around us. We cultivate the deeper sense of self acceptance, inner peace, and connection to something larger than ourselves. And from this space of openness and trust, we become empowered. We become empowered to live with greater authenticity. We become empowered to live with greater resilience. And we become empowered to live with greater joy. So, my friend, as you continue on your journey of letting go and trusting the flow, remember that the freedom that you seek is found not in control, but in surrender. Embrace the power of opening your heart and your mind to the natural unfolding of life and watch as the world of infinite possibilities unfolds before you. Thanks so much for tuning into the Magic Mindfulness podcast. Until next time, remember to trust yourself, trust the universe, and embrace the magic of mindfulness. And if today's episode resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe so you can receive regular doses of inspiration and practical tips for your mindfulness journey. Be sure to share this episode with a friend who could use a sprinkle of magic in their day. And don't forget to like this episode and leave a comment sharing your thoughts and experiences. Your support means the world to me as I continue spreading the magic of mindfulness. Take care, my friend, and I'll see you next time.